We're very excited to have Christine Simon from Solver USA presenting with us today. Today's webcast will introduce you to BI360, which is truly a unique business intelligence suite. BI360 is Excel-based, making it easy for all your staff to use. It offers out-of-the-box integration with Dynamics GP, including live reporting, not only at the GL level, but at the subledger level as well. So I hope you guys enjoy the webcast, and at this time I'd like to invite Christine to begin her presentation.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you everyone for joining me today. I really appreciate that. Here's just a little look at what we're going to look at today. We're going to cover a lot, and I hope at the end of our presentation, if it feels like it's an initial fit, that you definitely call Kristen and Jonathan and their team and set up a one-on-one demo. We're going to do a little bit of background about Solver. I won't spend too much time in PowerPoint, but I will cover that background information and a complete product overview because there's 5 different modules within BI360, and they're all mix and match, and we're going to focus on 2 of them today, reporting and planning. And then after I do that product overview, I'll let you know a little bit about an upgrade offer that we have for an FRX promotion too. And of course, we'll have all your questions at the end where we can talk about that as well. So just a little bit about Solver. We've been around since 1996, and all of our core competencies are all around business intelligence. And that means everything reporting, budgeting, forecasting, data warehouses, dashboards, and collaboration. And even though the product is relatively new and it's only been on the market a little less than 5 years, we have over 780 clients worldwide. And that really is attributed to the reasons why people select BI360. And the main reason is that Excel experience. So Excel, but now with drag and drop design and really strong integrations into Dynamics GP, where you can not only get that financial data, but all of that operational data. And all of the fields and tables have been translated into plain English, so account is account, department's department, vendor's vendor, customer's customer, just making it really easy to build those reports. And that same tool is a part of a complete BI suite, so learning the report writer is very good basis for learning how to build dashboards, as well as use that same tool for planning and budgeting and forecasting modules. Our corporate vision, of course, is to help you get the ROI out of the systems you have in place today by making that data accessible in really that true self-service BI environment. We do have a lot of customers across a number of industries, and that really speaks to the tremendous flexibility of the product. And today I'm going to show you some generic type reports, but we have a lot of industry models for, say, healthcare, for higher education, for not-for-profit and government, as well as for some other industries like hospitality and financial services. And if you're in any of those, I'd love to give you a more specific type demo around those areas. This slide is really just to show you that there's a lot of products out on the market, and a lot of them are what we call point products, where they solve a specific problem. And we'll look at today how BI360 actually covers that broad spectrum of options there in the product world by giving you live reporting like you have today with FRX or Management Reporter, but also subledger reporting that's live with using our reporting tool as well, and then in addition to that, ad hoc reporting. But it also allows for more complex BI needs, such as the ability to do consolidations and budgeting and forecasting and analytics and dashboards, and that all is based on a pre-configured data warehouse. And what I mean by pre-configured is, we used to build data warehouses from the ground up, and we decided to make it more like an ERP package where we'll use that concept where we can turn modules on. So it comes with 12 modules, GL, projects, payroll, fixed assets, things of that nature. And then it's got user-definable modules where you can really bring any information to combine in reports or your budgets and forecast or in those dashboards. And then we have a tool. The last module is the collaboration module, and that allows you to really put the human intelligence around all those BI assets and business processes. So the 5 modules: reporting, planning, dashboards, collaboration, and data warehouse. Today we're going to see reporting, which does cover a little bit of the dashboard as well as the planning module. And here's a detailed look at what that suite looks like. So we're going to look at how to design reports in Excel. And we're also going to look at, once we've designed them, how we can run them through Excel or through the web or through mobile apps. We'll also look at our Publisher module, which will give you the ability to distribute reports via email or to other shared network drives or sites or portals. And that same report writer is what we use to build our budgets and our forecasts. So now we can build really nice interactive Excel-based budgets, but with that input form that saves that data back to that budget database, that data warehouse. And it also has full workflow in it as well. So, not only now will we eliminate those manual processes, but we'll have full security and a database on the back end and workflow to really streamline that budgeting process. The dashboard module, which we'll start out with today, is our web reporting, but also the place where you can build your own dashboards live on your Dynamics GP data. So it's a great way to access that information real time in an interactive, more visually stimulating way than just, say, a standard report. That data warehouse is, it does a couple different things. Double duty, where it handles all of our consolidation processes, multi-currency conversions. It also handles that database for it's the same database for budgeting as well. And it's ideal for bringing in data from anywhere. So if you have a point of sale system, an inventory management system, a revenue system, a patient management system, just to name a few, you can bring that into the data warehouse and use all of these other tools to access that data. Now the collaboration module, you'll see, is really a great strategy execution tool where now you can capture all the dialogue and discussion around all of your reporting and your budgeting processes and make that information actionable by assigning tasks and managing all of those different contributions your employees make around reports and budgeting. And if you pull all those together, this is what the architecture looks like. It's a very traditional architecture. I think the big differentiator is that dotted line right back here to Dynamics GP or CRM. You have live reporting that's always going to be available. So that means the minute you load BI360 and install it, you're going to have access to start creating reports with that drag and drop design with drill down and drill to. Now, we'll look at drill 2 today, and drill 2 just means that you have the ability to go from GL information all the way down to those subledgers, because we go everywhere within Dynamics GP to access all the tables and fields, including custom ones using our integration manager. That reporting module is really made up of 3 components today, and we'll see the first one, that Excel-based report writer. We'll also see the Composer, which is our ad hoc query tool, and then we'll look at the Publisher, which is a way to automate the distribution and scheduling of report packages. That report writer points to both that live Dynamics data and that data warehouse data, so it's the same report writer. You only have to learn one tool to report on anything in your organization. The planning module sits right next to reporting, and that's by design. When you log in the morning, you're recognized as a user, and you can only budget for the areas of the business you've been given responsibility. You can only run reports or dashboards for the areas you've been given responsibility. So we use Active Directory security to make sure that those planning sheets now have full security, and then as users enter their budgets and forecasts, that data is saved back to that data warehouse. That data warehouse allows for the ability to pull in data using the Microsoft SQL integration services, really that native tool that comes with Microsoft SQL Server to pull in any type of data. Of course, it plays really well with other SQL databases, but even databases where you may not have that kind of access, such as cloud-based systems or systems that may be a little bit older technology, you can actually use common delimited files and Excel files to bring data into that data warehouse, making that available for reports and dashboards and planning as well. The dashboard module is really just a new addition, but it also has that dotted line where we've got that access to Dynamics GP or CRM through a web portal or through mobile apps. And that means everything you design over here in Excel can be run through the web. And then you can design your own dashboards really with just the same concepts, the same drag and drop design, the same access to that GP metadata where all the translations are done for you. So anybody that becomes a report writer is a really good candidate to become a dashboard designer. Then you see that little collaboration box around everything, pulling everything together in a nice portal where you have an extensive report library. You have advanced workflow for your consolidation process or your budgeting process, as well as the ability to create groups and polls and really collaborate across your industry, your organization, both with internal and external constituents. Okay, well, let's go to one last slide and then we'll jump into the demo. This last slide is about an upgrade offer for our FRX customers out there. You can get into BI360's reporting module for live integration to the GL module in Dynamics GP for only $9.95. And you can, of course, that's a great way to start out, and then you can upgrade to include all your modules or of course use it as the foundation for web reporting, multi-company dashboards, budgeting, and the data warehouse if you like as well. But just so you know that that's available. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to start you on the web portal, and the web portal is designed to really simplify the user experience, but also make that data available from anywhere. As long as you have a browser or if you have an iOS phone or tablet, you can access it through an app through your phone, and users can mark their favorites, put all of their reports into logical categories, and the great thing about it is that the reports that you select to use out here are the same reports with the same security and the same user license as you use in Excel. And that means that you're going to have secure access to data. You're also going to have the same type of design elements, so all of your charts and graphs. I can toggle between different versions of those reports. I can expand it so I can do a little better analysis. This is a really nice format, so all your formatting stays in place, all the integrity of those reports. You have the same filters you have in Excel. And you also have, one of my favorite features is that ability to get to details. So I can drill down into the transactions that make up those balances, and then as I'm doing my drill down, I can actually take that offline by taking that drill down subset back to my local laptop or desktop into Excel. There's also other ways you can work with the data. Maybe I want to do my own analysis here. I can see the impact on my charts and my graphs as I make little changes and see what my own what-if scenarios not affecting that data there also. So just another way to bring that information to light, and you'll see that we're actually putting some additional KPIs here too that we're tracking. Now, one of my favorite features out here for this is the ability to take a digital copy into a report with me, to a meeting with me. So I can scan this, and now I have a copy on my tablet or my phone. I can share a URL if I like. I can also share it inside the portal with someone else or email a link. But everybody's favorite is to be able to download a copy of that report to local. So it's born in Excel, so it does a great job of going back to Excel. And all of your formulas stay intact as well, too, if you want to work offline. So it's just another way to make sure that all of your users, whether they're in the office or out, have access to the information they need. Now I've got some other favorites down here, and I'm going to stop on this one report because I think it's really interesting. It's called, this one's got the drill 2. So it's going to give me a nice P&L, and I can toggle between different versions of that P&L, of course. I have the same security. This one's live on Dynamics GP. So as I choose my departments, these are the departments I have access to. I'm running for a whole range, and I'm also choosing the budget version I want to do that comparison to. But right here, if I right-click, you'll see that I have 3 different options for drill down. So out of the box with Dynamics GP, you can drill down to the summary level for those transactions, or you can drill down to the detail level. And the detail is going to take you back to those actual journal entries, allow for you to sort the data, also download a copy of that if you want to start slicing it up or put it in a pivot table or something like that. It gives you detailed access to information. But then you can configure any of your reports to include this type of drill down. So it's called drill 2, where now I can access that data that's inside my subledger. So I don't have any in that subledger. Let's go to this report. And we'll look at the details in this subledger. And now I can see those actual invoices. I can see which salesperson, which sales territory, etc. And this is all configurable. So imagine if you're looking at expenses, you want to look at purchasing transactions, or if you're looking at expenses, you want to look at projects or fixed assets. You can start to really think about how you can make your people more productive and use a single report to address those needs. Before we move on, let's look at one other report. We talked about having access to subledger details. Well, for those sales managers out there, now you can have live information in those reports with the ability to just refresh for the latest and greatest data with the same type of drill down to access to information. So if I right-click, I can look at all of the sales order processing, work order detail, history, all of the information that I need about those transactions. And of course, I can take that report offline, share the report as well too. Now there's also the ability to take that same data that's available and bring it into a nice dashboard. So for your executives who like to be, with the latest and greatest info, but would prefer it in a digital, visual format, you can easily build them a very dynamic dashboard which drills across and gives them the ability to analyze data just in graphs and charts. This is nice because now I can start to analyze, well, it looks like our one entity is spending a lot of money on travel, but their revenues are down. And if we look at this other one, they're spending less, but yet their revenues are up. So what are they doing different? What are their clients buying? What are their breakdowns by revenue? So all that information is just available at my fingertips with that same kind of auto refresh and real-time access to data as well. And we'll bring up, let's go back here, and we're going to go back to Excel now. So far we've looked at the web portal, and the web portal has access to my live reports and my live dashboards. It also allows me to mix and match and add information from that data warehouse to those reports or to those dashboards as well. So let's switch over to Excel, and we're going to look at what I consider really the best example of what you can do with Excel report writing, and it's called Decision Pack. We'll look at this report, and then we're going to deconstruct what's going on in the template and look behind the scenes about how we connect to that GP data. So here I have a report that has an auto narrative, and that auto narrative is built on the details that exist in these other tabs. So it's taking that information from my P&L, from my sales report, from my vendor report and my receivables report, and pulling it into a nice little news flash, which uses language like profitability was great this month in comparison to last month. It would be, if it was less, then it would say moderate or weak or something like that. It's got charts and graphs, logos, but more importantly, it creates a nice narrative to all that financial data. The next tab utilizes one of the features that the product has, which is the ability to build key process indicators, so KPIs. You can really build KPIs around any process you have within your organization. I've got some around my profitability metrics. I also have some, return on equity type of metrics, but you can really bring to life any kind of metrics, inventory turns, number of patients, average patient charges, things of that nature. Create a standard calculation and use that calculation in scorecards, reports, dashboards, over and over again for real consistency across the board. This really helps to create that culture around KPIs so that people start to look forward to getting those green lights. This has my favorite P&L format, and this is actually a template I'm showing you here. So there's a lot of downloadable templates out on our customer portal, and you can take those ideas if you like them, some of the shading, some of the use of conditional formatting, grouping at the column level so you can have nice presentation quality reports, but dynamic columns that expand out for when you're doing your analysis. We use a lot of the traffic lights here too. That really helps with the non-financial people. They can see where they need to dig down into those details. And then a lot of times we'll take the details out of these financial reports and pull them into a really nice dashboard so that people who are non-financial people can spot trends a lot easier. I can see my profit margin trend. Even though my revenues are going up, my profit margin is going down, and I can also use things like predictive analysis. So if I want to take those budget numbers and that actual revenue line, I can combine those to come up with a prediction for the next 3 months. Also can, of course, break it down by line of business. I can also look at it overall comparisons in different types of views. Now this dashboard, it's configurable, so I've got it looking at 2 of my main expenses, but you can really configure it for any expense accounts that you want to monitor, to match your chart of accounts in your organization. And then down here at the bottom, I have a liquidity dashboard. So we took that cash flow statement and we brought it into a nice little chart and graph so that I can visualize, where we are in comparisons to last year. No report package would be complete without a nice balance sheet, letting me know where all my liabilities and assets lie and what it looks like from stockholders' equity and those quick ratios. The cash flow statement, and then we start getting into subledger details. So we're starting at that high level with a narrative, and then we're digging into the details in those subledgers. So now we're looking at my top selling products. What are the big ticket items? We're also looking at who are my customers that outperform my expectations. They're in green. The ones that underperformed are in red. So now I can give them a call and say, hey, what's going on? Maybe we need to go to lunch and talk about our business plan together. And then also payments, reversing those lights so that I can easily spot those ones that are above my threshold of pain. And receivables, so I have a list of who to call. And the final tab is called our Decision Support Advisor. So when you have a BI tool, you can start to really put that data to work for you. And internally, we put our goals into place, and then we add some metrics to it. So when we reach X number of revenue, we're going to be allowed to hire a new person. And these lights turn from red to green. My boss calls it the Susie Orman tab because it says you are allowed to hire that new person when you reach your goals, because Susie doesn't like it when you go out and spend money when you don't have the money. So we put those goals in place, we monitor our progress towards them, and with the data warehouse we're actually going to start to be able to store those comments and change our statuses to be updated to those new status levels. Now that's the ultimate report package. So I'm going to close this and we're going to take a look at the template behind the scenes and how we work with that. So let me just close this little published report. So that was a template. So when we look at the template, it's blank here. So as we deconstruct what's going on here, we're going to look at some of the features and functions that make this tool work so well for people. And we're going to look at this P&L page right here. So this P&L page has access to all of the fields within the finance, because that's what we're using for that page. And then here in sales, we're accessing our customer information, our item information. So we're combining all of those details into a single report package. As a report user, I have a run tab, so I'm a player, and I have the ability to run reports on demand. And that means that it's real-time access to that data. It's going to populate all of my tabs here, and it's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for me. So it's going to recognize me and security and only allow for the information that I have access to populate that report. The Design tab, and of course because I'm inside Excel, I've got access to all those features and functions, but the Design tab is for those power users. And those are the users that can see all of the modules you have installed in Dynamics GP over here based on their security. They also can see that great integration we have. So if I look just at that actual summary here and that account string, you'll see account as account, departments department, divisions division. And as I hover over those fields, you see their real names. So those of you familiar with writing reports using FRX or Management Reporter, you probably know that what GL001 is. Well, now you don't have to know that anymore. So people that are new to the product can build a report at that natural account level, and that's going to allow us to use dynamic ranges. In this case, row 11 is utilizing the dynamic ranges in a conditional statement. So it says begins with 4. So all accounts that begin with 4 will be considered revenue accounts, and when I run my P&L, those will automatically be included. That means if I add a new revenue account in the 4 ranges, it's going to automatically be included. So start thinking about, we can build smart reports that require less maintenance going forward. Not only do we control the rows here for grouping and filtering, we also control the columns. And that means that you have the ability to group and filter those column levels, which is how you get those really nice comprehensive reports that have my current year expanding and my last year expanding little components here. So that allows me for me to use the accounting logic to populate the report and not have to code in things like current period minus 1, 2, or 3. And a lot of my customers say that's a real time saver for them. Now, looking at this, you'll see user-definable fields here too, so I can add any kind of custom tables or fields to that by just pointing my integration manager to that as well. There's a couple other things behind the scenes here too. You know, one thing that we do really well is we have accounting logic built into it, and we call those functions. And those are just calculations that are pre-built that you can use over and over again, so that when you're building a report with something like a rolling report, it's easy to build. Or if you're doing a trended report, you already have that calculation built there for you. Or if you're doing just comparisons, you know, quarter over quarter, or in this case I've got my current period, also I've got my last period, and then I've got some budget information, and then I've got it expanded for that current year complete. So a lot of ways to access that information using these functions to shortcut building those reports. The final thing here are the ability to build KPIs, and KPIs are those calculations that you're using over and over again. So in this report we have a net income KPI as well as a profit margin KPI, and we use those same calculations over and over again in all of my reports so that we have a lot of consistency in the ranges of accounts that we use. Really great for day sales outstanding and other metrics you might be tracking such as headcount, etc. All right, so that's what's going on behind the scenes. So let's come back over here, and we're just going to run that report again, and you'll see that we have not only, we always have access to details, so right out of the box you're going to have access to drill down capabilities, that 4 different levels. So just like I had that access available out on the web, I also have it here, which gives me all the tables and fields. And then you see that they all have really nice user-friendly names. And up until this point, I've not needed a Dynamics GP license to run reports with that drill down and access to details. But if you do have a GP license, then you can take advantage of our account drill back. So by clicking on that link, it would actually open up the journal entry within Dynamics GP if you have a license and access to that data. So just so you know, always have that really good access to information and that really tight integration with Dynamics GP. All right, so let's look at another subledger report, and then we'll look at how to build a report together. And everything that we learn about these reports, just so you know, is reusable knowledge for budgets and forecasts. This is a nice little AP report here, and it's utilizing some features I really like. So one thing it has is dynamic columns. And then it also has dynamic rows, so these different vendors, I can select a subset of that information. And then I also have the ability to filter down to that specific date that I might want to be interested in analyzing. I'll hit run here. It'll populate the report, and it'll use that same kind of business logic for recognizing vendors with balances over $50,000 in red, and it's also anybody under $12,000 is going to be in green. And everywhere I see these little drop-down options, I can get additional details. So it's a nice summarized report. It had 2 columns based on that posting period, and all of these rows were populated based on that filter there too. And then I have conditional formatting, which helps me to recognize outliers. So in my organization, I want to be notified, I want to recognize any amounts over $25,000. It's a little bit excessive. So from there, it'll highlight them, but then also I can drill down into those payable transactions too. So a great way to access that detailed information all from that single report. Now these little groupings here become really useful in helping you to expand your reporting audience. So let's go ahead and publish this report. The published reports look exactly the same. So you can publish from Excel, and then you of course can send out that published report manually if you like. But you can also utilize our publisher tool to take those reports and put them inside packages or just single reports and distribute them automatically for you. So the published reports can be pretty dynamic as well. So I get my reports every Tuesday and every Friday. They're graphical in nature. They've got some charts and graphs, and they also have that grouping at the row level, which means I have details that have been programmed into that report just for me. And the bonus here is that that list of email recipients doesn't have to be a BI360 report a user. They can be a combination of both. So first step, package up, give it a nice user-friendly name, include the different templates you want to be a part of that report package. You can also put a nice cover page too. It'll take those reports, package them up, and then let you distribute them to different targets. So in this case, this one's going to be sent out once as a merged PDF out to my report library, and that can be SharePoint, or it can also be a shared drive, or it can be our collaboration portal, wherever you want to send that final copy. And then I'm also going to send out a copy as a merged workbook via email to a list of subscribers. And that's going to happen on a monthly basis. So whether our controllers in the office are out, that's going to happen on a scheduled basis, or she can run that on demand as well too. Really saves a lot of time pulling together manual reports and posting them and emailing them out to people. Now you can automate that. And the best part about it is it's going to be dynamic, so that when I receive my reports, they're only going to include the areas of the business I have responsibility. A great way to expand that audience, give them details for those collapsible rows, and really building smart reports. Let's come back over here though, and let's build a report together. I think you'll be pleased with just the ease of use, but also some of the features that make it so that you don't have to go back and edit these reports all the time. So I choose new blank. I could bring in a current report where I want to maybe capture the formatting I already have in place for that one. But I'm going to start with a blank screen here, and I'm going to select my integration. So I can use the same tool whether I'm building a budget and forecast off the data warehouse, or if I'm building a CRM report, or if I'm building it off that Dynamics GP. And your list will reflect only the options you have. I'm going to choose Dynamics GP. I'm going to say OK here. And I'm going to just start out with a blank screen. So one of the things that people really appreciate the product is it's a what you see, what you get tool, meaning that I'm going to be able to do my formatting one time. I had one customer tell me that she used to run a report in FRX, export to Excel, and then she'd pull it into Excel, and then she would do the formatting and change the column and rows and all that kind of good stuff. And this would take her probably half a day, a month, where she was reformatting the data. And with this, she's going to start in Excel and then be able to finish in Excel. And it dynamically updates. So right here I went to account, I dragged it over. It's going to give me that just that natural account, and it pops open with a little dialog box. So this is part of the smart reports I was talking about. It's got intelligence built in it, so it wants to help you build those reports in a better way. So we're going to create a group here. And when I do that, it highlights that row 7, and I'm going to put my range in, and I'm just going to do a Control A and get everything. And that means if I added a 11/21 here next month, it would show up in the report. I wouldn't have to edit this report. And if I wanted a summary of those accounts, I would just simply unclick that option. Let's go get my description. So now I've got account and description sitting next to each other. Let's go get one of my measures. Measures are my dollar amounts, and they're pretty easy to recognize. I have a little dollar sign right there, and I can use my Excel features to just copy across. So I've got those two period balances sitting next to each other. And here's where it gets interesting. The functions come into play, that accounting logic. So now I can say, well, what do I want this period balance to be? I know I want it to be this range of accounts, but this period balance, maybe I want it to be my year-to-date number. Drag that over, and let's compare it to last year-to-date. Drag that over. So now it's grouping and filtering at those column levels. So at the intersection of D7, I'm getting this range of accounts. Oops, I didn't hit OK there. Glad I saw that. Okay, I'm getting this range of accounts, and I'm getting it for my year-to-date period balance. And at 7E, I'm getting my last year-to-date period balance. Comparisons right next to each other. Of course, you can relabel those top little labels. And then I'm going to add a variance formula, And that's where people smile sometimes, because now I'm just using my Excel skills. Come over here, let's add a total line, and we'll use one of my shortcuts for that. And we'll copy it across, and we'll turn this into currency. And now we have our first report. We'll just put a little border around that bottom, make it look nice. Come over to run. And when we get to run, it knows I want to run this by posting period. So now I can say, okay, let's run that by posting period. Run. It automatically populates the report. I can now check the integrity of the reports. Maybe I want to drill down and look at the transactions behind those numbers. I've got that instant access to details, which allows me to slice and dice the data, really make sure that we're getting the appropriate transactions before I even save that report or share it with anybody. There you go. And now I can take this report as my baseline and start to clean it up a little bit. Come back to design to clean it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little left justification, make that look a little nicer. I'm going to add a department filter to it. Come back to finance. We'll come back to that account string. And so you'll notice that each of my segments for my accounts are chopped up here. That really creates a nice multi-dimensional chart of accounts where you can really filter down to any combination or secure down to any combination. This time, instead of doing the groupings at that row or that column, we're actually going to do it at the page level. And that's because it's a really nice little time saver here. So let's pull that department over. And that created a new run parameter. Let's walk through the wizard and give it some additional functionality. So let's start that parameter wizard and walk through. We'll choose a lookup style, so you might have a preference there. And right here, create sheet per value. That's where the magic happens. That's where we start to, one client told me she used to spend about a half a day a month just cutting and pasting the different departments onto different pages and doing the exports and so forth. So this is a real little time saver. Watch what happens when we run it for a single department. It's going to filter the data, relabel the bottom, relabel the top, and now I'm only looking at the accounts that have that 300 department segment. Yet I can use this same template across all my departments, and it's going to do the same functionality. It's going to relabel the top, relabel the tabs, put them all that data onto their own filtered tabs so that I don't have to do that manually anymore. This is usually where the wheels start to turn. Now you can build really nice reports with a summary first page and a breakdown of each of your different dimensions. So you may cost center, department, different lines of business, whatever it might be, you can now have that automatically do that for you. So this becomes a template, and once you've got that template, you can run it through the web. So I could easily access any of those reports that I build in Excel through the web, and I can also access them via email through the Publisher module, and I can also publish them to my web portal as well too. So a lot of ways to get to those reports once you build them for the different types of consumers you have out there. One last component of reporting, and most of you might already be familiar with the concept. This is my Composer tool, and it allows for ad hoc queries. And if you use SmartList today, you'll see that SmartList has my little SmartList options are down here too. You can access them with BI360 because we go everywhere in GP. And what it allows you to do is really take that concept of being able to do a smart list, but leverage that easy to recognize metadata. So when I'm doing my smart list or doing my composer list, I have my appropriate field names. I can just drag them over. It only takes about an hour to learn this product, and it gives you an opportunity to get familiar with your data, meaning that it's the same metadata as I use for reports as well as for dashboards. And now I can add filters to it, but this goes a little bit further than just Smart List. So it will, I call it Super Smart List because it has a little cape on it. It can now take that data and it can not only filter it down to the areas I want to analyze, but also group it and add row totals and column totals. So when I do my first initial refresh data, you'll see it looks a lot like what Smart List does today. Well, here's where it gets interesting. Now I can group it by vendor, or maybe I want to group it by document type, then vendor, or maybe vendor then document type. So I have a lot of flexibility in the type of groupings I do. I can also show those row totals, so I don't have to manually calculate that information or anything. And I can also add a breakdown by period. So now I've got a nice query for my vendor data. I can use it over and over again by simply saving that query, or I can share that query, or I can export it to Excel or out to a PDF. And we love Excel, so it remains the formulas stay intact for you as well. And then you can also export it back to that report designer where we built that trial balance. And now these are my run parameters. They're dynamic. These are my dynamic columns, and these are my dynamic rows, giving me a lot of flexibility and just jump-starting building some of those reports that maybe I wouldn't do today. But you'll always have access to that dynamics data or the data warehouse in this ad hoc fashion. All right, let's come back to my slide real quick and just do a quick review before we jump into some of the planning options. So we saw how to run reports out on the dashboard module, and that was live on that dynamics data. We also saw that there were some dashboards out there using that same data so that I can have real-time dashboards across my organization. That same module allowed for reports to be run off the data warehouse or off Dynamics Live, and same for dashboards too. The reporting module is where we actually built those templates. So we ran a template through Excel, we published a template through Excel, and we built a template in Excel. And that gave me the ability to take that information, those reports, and then publish them through our publisher module. But then I also had access to ad hoc capabilities, so I could do queries on the fly on that same level of information. All the time, you can have both access to both Dynamics or the data warehouse. Now the planning module is very much married to that report writer. So everything that we learned about building that trial balance, dynamic rows and things of that nature, adding parameters, that's all useful information for building budgets and forecasts. And I like to say there's not a budget or a forecast I've met we don't do well. And that's because you have the tremendous flexibility of Excel, but you have full security now with a database on the back end. So it eliminates all of the manual processes you have today. So let's jump in and take a look at it. So I'm coming back to Excel. I'm going to go ahead and close this one up, and we'll just open up a blank sheet real quick. And okay, so we're back in Excel. Reporting sits right next to planning. That's by design. So you don't have to log in and out of the product to access your budgets or reports. You also have the ability to, when I'm recognized as a user when I log in, so of course I'm using that security. Assignments is how I control the flow of the budgets. So we'll talk about assignments, save data, and enter data. And from an end user perspective, I can see my upcoming budget cycles. I can see which ones are currently active. And under that active profile, that active tab, I've got different folders. And each of those folders has different templates based on functions. So I've got some modeling templates, some forecasting templates, my typical annual budget templates. I've got some other ones for allocations, etc. And as I move across those little blue folders, you'll see the assignment details change. So from an end user, I'm giving them guidance. What do they need to do when they open up those budgets? Here's instructions. I also give them start and stop date information. Within that little folder, the templates reside, and from an admin perspective, I now can see where they are in the process. It looks like Department 200 has not started their budget, so it's not open status. If it was completed, when they submit that budget, it will move to ended, where they can no longer edit it, or if the date passes and they can't edit any longer either, and it moves to ended. So I have complete visibility where they are in the process. I can run reports, or I can look at it on my screen and determine who might need a little encouragement to get their budgets finished. Well, let's take a look. One of the key walkaways from this is that today you might have a different Excel sheet for every department. Well, now we're going to have a single template that we're going to use across all of my departments, all my divisions, all my companies. And we're going to bring data in from multiple sources as well too. It starts at that high level, which is assumptions. Assumptions are basically the drivers for your calculations. So I've got my assumptions tied to this personnel budget. This personnel budget is pretty popular, and it's a great example of how you can combine data across multiple systems. So today you might have your payroll with one of the major providers out there, or it might be in Dynamics GP, but you can take that payroll data and marry it to your GL data so that you have the detailed payroll budget you need, but you don't have all of the manual processes of cutting and pasting that into a single form. We're going to work dynamically. So this same payroll budget gets used across all of my companies, and how it knows which tax rates to use is based on those assumptions. So all your variables for calculations are stored in assumptions, but there's no linking of spreadsheets. That's stored back and that's saved back to that budget database. It also uses security, so you're not going to see the different departments unless you have access and you're supposed to budget for those departments. So if I only have access to 200, then that's all that would show up on that list. You also have budget scenarios, unlimited budget scenarios. So I can have version control as well as best case scenario versus worst case scenario type budgets. And the same goes for forecasting as well too. But here's the key. I have actual information. So I don't have to cut and paste. There's no manual processes there. I hit run. It's going to populate this payroll budget with the names of all the full-time employees for my department, for my division, and I've got my part-time employees down here. That's all view-only data, so I can't change it. It's protected. And I've got my employee code, hire dates, and rates of pay. But where the improvements are, the process improvements, are right here where I can easily edit this data in the yellow fields and add new people, a little placeholder for that as well. And as I do and keep tabbing across those different fields, you'll see that it will create a little placeholder here. Well, today you probably send that spreadsheet back, save it as, and send it back. Well, now you just press Save Data. It's saved back to that budget database. And now from an admin perspective, I can run a report immediately across all departments, all divisions, and see who's hiring for which positions and what the fiscal impact will be for that new hire. Scroll to the right and we'll see those calculations play out. And I've got a total salary calculation, which is based on start and stop date. I also have, so I can see where Carlos ends and my new hire starts. I've also got total compensation, and that's based on those assumptions. So those tax rates, workers' comp, FICA, etc. Create that total compensation number, but I can add any type of employee burden to that total compensation, such as fringe benefits, car allowances, telephone allowances, whatever it might be that makes up that total compensation package. Now you have that for quick comparisons. And then if I scroll to the right, we'll see those calculations posted to the appropriate bucket. So I have an overtime, a bonus. You'll see my FICA assumption up here right above the FICA amounts for each employee, and federal and state. And then it comes down to a workers' comp calculation as well. And finally, it comes up with a headcount calculation. So it's giving me my head count, and that gives me the ability to store that for my budget versus actual head count variances, or to use that as a baseline for allocations, because we do allocations really well. And then we'll scroll down here and we'll see how it ticks and ties back to my GL. It now has a summary by account, by period, a breakdown. It has my head count numbers down here, and a nice comparison to last year's January amount compared to this year's budget. And as I scroll to the right, I'll see the overall total budget for this form as well as a comparison to last year's actuals. And then I have those up and down arrows where I can easily see where I have room to hire maybe some part-time people for the summer. And when I'm done, all I have to do is press Save Data and submit it. It goes to the next phase in the workflow. That data is pretty sensitive though, so my next budget template is really my most popular one. And any of the templates you see today you can use as a baseline to start, but if you have something already built in Excel and you want to use that as a baseline, you can do that too. So we're not going to change your processes to fit our system. We're going to let you keep those processes in place. So this is my other expense budget. It's going to do a lot of heavy lifting as well. It's going to apply security so that I only see the accounts for this entity in this department. I've got actuals and I've got the same budget version here. Same concept where the blue fields are all view only, can't change them. And users adopt BI360 pretty nicely. If they're coming from a current system that's Excel budget-based budgeting, it's going to be very familiar to them. They're going to be able to use the same methods of data entry. They can use calculations if they want to. So very familiar. The big difference is when they're done with their budget, save data, there's no more sending the spreadsheets and copying and pasting from those. All the manual processes are gone. And then you have a full audit trail, who entered what, when, and where. And no more broken formulas. Off to the right, you'll see my actuals, and the actuals will go through that last period where I had actuals and then fill in the blanks with my forecast amounts. Here's where people have access to the details, so you can drill down to information from last year's actuals, and that can be summary level, or you can configure it to have detailed information too. And then down at the bottom, you'll see that I've got my other accounts that were budgeted on other forms. So all of my payroll amounts are down here, but I can't see that Carlos makes X number of dollars. I can just see those summary amounts. So my department heads get all of the information they need. They have all the accounts that are just for them. Any new accounts that got added will just automatically show up this year. But where the real process improvement is with this budget logic right here, this Enter Data button. When I open it up, I had one customer tell me that it saved them weeks off their budgeting process, and that's because the users had a nice little window with all the details they needed. So I could see budget versus actual. The actuals that were way off to the right here are right above the data input grid. That way they can easily see, if September is always the same, change that amount. And they can start to use things like spread methods and do their own what-if analysis. So let's just go put that amount in there, and let's come over here and let's do a spread and see what we get. So we'll just put in $42,000 here, spread it evenly, and maybe see, well, what does that look like when we do it trend-based? We're taking that historical data and putting it to work for you, or everybody's favorite, copy history. And then play around with that percent adjustment. Maybe you've given some guidance to reduce your travel expenses this year, and being a good employee, I say that, I can live within that range right there. Let's go ahead and reduce it by 8%. And I'll put my justifications in here so that I'm complying. 8% reduction, and then right here, this is what keeps that person moving line item by line item through that budget plan very quickly. So imagine if you've got 20 to 40 accounts, you can get through them pretty quickly because you can use these methods to eliminate manual keying of data. You can also employ line item details so you can do your own little calculations and bring that to a point, and utilize the different spread methods for the different line items as well. And all of that line item detail is going to be stored in that budget database so you can use it in reports. All those comments and justifications, all those drivers, all that good stuff. And then just keep moving line item by line item through the report. Maybe these are going to be customer gifts, and we'll be doing those amounts, and then maybe we also have employee gifts, and we'll be putting in those amounts. So now you have that access to information, keep moving through it. When I'm done, all I do is hit Save Data and move to the next phase in the workflow. Once that data is out there, you can start to immediately report off of it in an ad hoc fashion. So I'm going to bring up this sister report. It's my budget report. It's going to combine my payroll budget, my expense budget, and my revenue budget into a nice P&L budget form. So here, as an admin, I can pull that budget across all my entities, or I can focus on just one. There's no Consolidate button, and I can bring across all those departments and hit Run here. Now from here, I'm going to have all of the detail that they added in on their revenue budgets broken down by each of my line of businesses and GL accounts they're tied to. I also can see that information that was on that payroll budget. And anywhere that I find a number of interest, I can go ahead and right-click and drill down and see where they are in the process. So have they passed through the approval process? Has it been approved yet? What kind of comments did they add for their justifications? And of course, I can come back and say, well, now it's consolidated across all of my companies. and analyze the entire budget. And just a simple, using those filters, letting that relational database do the heavy lifting for you. All right, so we've seen a lot today, and like I said, if you think there's an initial fit for us, I'd love to schedule a one-on-one time with you. I'm going to come right back here, and we're just going to do a quick little review of what we've seen. And just from the reporting perspective, BI360 really addresses all the challenges you might have today by giving you a complete reporting solution that gives you that access to details, but also with a tool that's really easy to understand, build reports and run those reports through Excel or through web or through mobile apps. This slide's about the benefits, who benefits from BI360. I think there's one benefactor that's not on this list that's quite obvious. It's IT, and that's because we're a true self-service business intelligence tool. You'll be able to actually build your own reports, and you won't have to ask IT to do it for you. Everything you saw is available within our customer portal, all the templates and documents. We have a lot of great white papers out there and a forum to connect with other users. My favorite part are probably the training videos. There's a lot of videos. You can do some self-learning as well. And then I'm going to open it up for questions and talk about next steps.
All right. Thank you, Christine.